37岁被国企裁员，最终还是没能逃。
I was 37 years old and was laid off by a state-owned enterprise. Ultimately, I could not escape this terrible news. This morning, I was working on a project outside when I received a message from my boss asking me to go to the office. Companies in Beijing are now integrating departments, laying off employees, and cutting salaries. The remaining employees must work overtime to do the work of 3 people. It's not just large factories and private companies. State-owned and central enterprises are also cutting salaries and laying off employees. When I saw the news, my heart skipped a beat, thinking it was about layoffs. I had no choice but to go anyway. The boss told me about group optimization and I was on the layoff list. When I heard the result, I still felt a surge of sadness in my heart.
结果的那一刻，心里还是涌出一阵酸楚。
没想到有一天呀，我也会成为那个假装上班的人。
I never thought that one day I would become the one who pretends to go to work. I remember reading a report before that Starbucks was full of people early in the morning. They didn't go there to enjoy life, but to order coffee. They stayed there all day and everyone's face was full of helplessness. I am unemployed like them today and dare not tell my family about it. For someone like me who has elderly parents and young children, I really dare not face it.
真的不敢面。
After the Chinese New Year holiday, various places have gradually resumed work. Still, social platforms have seen a surge in posts and videos about layoffs or salary cuts in state-owned enterprises and central enterprises, including state-owned enterprises in first-tier cities such as Beijing and Shanghai. Today, we'll discuss layoffs in Chinese state-owned enterprises. But before we do, we would like to invite you to subscribe. Your support is our greatest motivation and allows us to bring you more valuable content. Now, moving on. Layoffs in state-owned enterprises mean that the iron rice bowl of employees has been broken, indicating that China's economic system's stabilization layer is beginning to loosen. American economist David Huang said, "If the government cannot fundamentally improve the economy but only allows state-owned enterprises to reduce their staff and lay off employees, the result is that state-owned enterprises will become a club for the rich and powerful and vested interest groups. It will be even more difficult for ordinary people to enter, and only by relying on powerful and specific relationships can they share in the social dividend. This means that the upward channel of society is completely blocked, and the class solidification of the entire society is very serious." Blogger Xiao Ran said that one of her sisters used to work in a central enterprise in Beijing and was recently laid off.
你敢相信吗？央企会裁员。
Can you believe it? State-owned enterprises will lay off employees, and the jobs that PhD graduates have finally managed to get within the Beijing government system will no longer be stable. One of my sisters graduated with a PhD in finance from the Chinese Academy of Sciences in 2018 and joined a first-class, fully funded institution in Beijing. Although the salary for this job is not high, all our relatives admire her. Every time I mention the sister, I feel very proud. But a few days ago, I went to Beijing to do some work and stayed at her house to rest. I heard her say that her iron rice bowl was about to become unstable because her unit would be converted into a second-class public institution or even an enterprise. She was really panicking and felt that she was about to lose the support that had supported her life in Beijing. She would never have stayed in Beijing without finding a job in the system. Now, she has elderly parents and young children to take care of, and if she loses this job, she will be really at a loss.
如果失去这份工作，她真的要走投无路了。
This blogger worked in a state-owned enterprise for 13 years. He lamented that he was laid off and is nothing now.
以后再也不是那个在央企大家口中的文处长了。
After being laid off, I am no longer the director of a central enterprise. After graduating from university, I gave up a high-paying job with an annual salary of 40,000. I followed my parents' will to work for China Coal Energy Group, thinking I would have a stable job and spend my old age peacefully. I have worked diligently for 13 years, from an ordinary clerk to a deputy director, and now a director of a central enterprise with a monthly salary of $1,400. In my 13th year at work, I had endless overtime work and worries, and sometimes I had no time to eat. On my 4,642nd day at work, I was supposed to go to Xinjiang to carry out a task. But in the middle of the day, I was told I was laid off. When I heard the news, I was stunned. Is this the hurdle I will encounter at the age of 38? Am I going to face a life without income? The fixed monthly car loan, mortgage, water, electricity, fuel, food, drink, defecation, and various expenses overwhelm me. Only now do I truly realize how difficult it is to be an adult.
成年人的世界真的不容易。
A blogger posted a video saying that in the past, people thought they could just lay flat once they entered state-owned enterprises, but now the layoffs are even more severe than in large factories. Oh my god, I never thought it would be harder to find a job in 2025 than in 2024. A few days ago, a friend of mine from Zhejiang University complained to me that their entire enterprise was laid off. He had been working in the state-owned enterprise since graduation. We all thought it was a stable job, but who would have thought he would be directly notified that he would have to find a new job within 30 days? He was completely confused because no one believed that the work of a state-owned enterprise could be so unstable. In fact, this is not an isolated case. Since 2024, there have been many reports of layoffs in state-owned and central enterprises. For example, the Southern Power Grid has downsized and cut many departments. There was also a state-owned bank that cancelled 60% of its expansion plan, and fresh graduates who entered the bank last year have become the targets of layoffs this year. There have also been reports of layoffs in Shanghai's state-owned enterprises. You may not believe the current situation in Shanghai. Many large companies are cutting salaries and laying off employees. Small companies suffer losses and go bankrupt. Some high-end foreign companies have moved away entirely, and most are also continuously laying off employees. In my eyes, state-owned enterprises used to be like a haven, but now state-owned enterprises are not attractive anymore. A friend told us the boss paid their year-end bonus the day before New Year's Day. Although there have been rumors within the company that the bonus would be reduced, she was depressed when she found out that it was $2,800 less when she received it. I was initially happy to have a day off on New Year's Day, but on the first day of work, I could feel that my colleague beside me was in a low mood. When I asked, I found out that her husband was laid off. Her husband works as an IT developer in a state-owned enterprise and has worked in the company for 3 years. However, he was laid off with more than 20 days left before the Chinese New Year. Although this blogger is in Shanghai, she always feels an atmosphere of layoffs around her. She said she was also worried because even if her family didn't eat or drink, they still had to pay the $1,400 mortgage every month. She hasn't had a salary increase in several years. Every month, as soon as she gets her salary, she deposits it into her mortgage card for fear that she will be unable to pay back the mortgage. Now, she no longer pursues brand names or compares herself with others. It's very lucky for her to have a job. Blogger Ching Song cited the example of a Shenzhen state-owned enterprise reducing welfare benefits. The most typical example is Shenzhen Metro. Even though the net profit has been declining for 5 consecutive years, it's said that the employees there are not affected at all. The average monthly salary is $2,100 and 2 more months can be paid at the end of the year. The Provident Fund is paid directly according to the upper limit. During the holidays, they can also get some rice, flour, oil, gift cards, etc., meaning an annual income of $35,000 is easy. Moreover, the work is not tiring. Most people can work from 9 to 5 and get off work on the hour. This kind of life is simply the ceiling for workers. Blogger Ching Song said that reality often slaps people in the face unexpectedly. When they were envious of them for not having to worry about rice, flour, and oil during the festivals and for the endless supply of various cards, coupons, and subsidies, everything changed in the blink of an eye. The Provident Fund was cut from the upper limit to the lower limit. Some subsidiaries' medical reimbursements and other benefits were cleared to zero, and many employees complained. Companies like China Railway Construction and China Construction are in even worse situations. They have generally launched layoff plans with more than 20% layoff rates, and some departments have even been laid off. Even if you avoid being laid off, if you stay, you may face the fate of either a pay cut or just a basic salary and go home to wait for a job. Some people were afraid to tell their families after being laid off, so they had to go to the library or Starbucks every day to pretend to go to work. You may not believe the current environment in Shanghai. Many large companies and government agencies cannot pay bonuses or wages, so they are cutting salaries and laying off employees. Employees want to resign but are afraid of being unable to find a job. If they don't leave, they won't get paid. Although it's only a name, people who are used to working in state-owned enterprises would rather waste time than resign because private enterprises are more likely to cause middle-age unemployment. I often see middle-aged people sitting in Starbucks and McDonald's looking at their computers all afternoon. They appear to be working, but in fact they are looking for jobs. In the past 2 years, the situation has been even worse, especially for upstream and downstream industries related to real estate. Many owners of decoration companies and home furnishing companies are on the verge of collapse. I always say that my husband's job is unstable, but I suddenly realize that my job is the most unstable. When I joined my current company, I signed a 5-year labor contract. After I got my diploma at the end of June 2019, I started working on July 1st. Now it's March 2024 and it will be July soon, which is the time to renew the contract. The company is very likely not to renew it. Although I work for a central enterprise, which is generally stable, the employment environment has been bad in the past 2 years. Many companies are cutting salaries and no longer hiring new people. Many state-owned and central enterprises are implementing the last-in, first-out system and continuously laying off employees. I will soon have worked in the company for 5 years and plan to have a child. My job content is not irreplaceable, so there's a high possibility that it will be optimized away by not renewing the contract. Companies always consider things from the perspective of overall interests. The paid leave for pregnant women and the extra workload after taking leave are both costs for the company. This is why we often see online that pregnant women are laid off in disguise, and married women without children are discriminated against in the job market. Although my income is not high and I am not in a dominant position in the family, if I lose my job, my husband will be the only one earning money in the family. He has to support me and our family, and the pressure is too great. So, after losing my job, I still have to look for a job as quickly as possible. Blogger Anze used to work in a state-owned enterprise. He had just completed a project and had no work to do, so he was laid off.
正式声明啊，我绝对是国企正式员工带编制的。
Let me officially declare that I am definitely a formal employee of a state-owned enterprise with a regular position and not an outsourced labor dispatch worker or anything like that. I graduated from university in 2020 and went to a state-owned enterprise. I won't tell you what it was called, I'll just call it my original unit. After I went there, I realized that state-owned enterprises also serve the client, and the company has to find projects on its own to survive. The timeline came to the day before I was laid off. Before leaving to get off work, my boss called me over for a talk and told me that the company had lost $400,000 this year, which led to the superior unit issuing a clear order to lay off employees. The leadership team also did a lot of research before and after, and it seems you are one of them. Why? I had just finished a project at that time, and the company was at a stage where it couldn't take on new projects. So I had nothing to do at the time. My boss meant laying me off would be more appropriate and no handover was needed. I thought it was really easy for you, but then I changed my mind and realized that I commute 90 kilometers to and from work daily, and the gas and tolls cost me $10 daily. Moreover, the average monthly income is only $830 a year, which is too comfortable, and there is little room for advancement. I think being laid off is not necessarily a bad thing. The future may be better.
我想着被裁也不一定什么坏事儿，未来可能会更好呢。
What is the situation of internet companies in Shanghai? Not only did they wildly lay off employees, but they also didn't provide any compensation. Not only employees who were breastfeeding were laid off, but pregnant women were also laid off. Do you know what's even more damning about the company? It was agreed that the compensation would be paid on January 31st, but when the deadline came, no compensation was paid at all. Hundreds of us sent some representatives and went to the Arbitration Institute to apply for arbitration immediately after the New Year. After mediation by the Arbitration Institute, we only got 10% of the compensation in the first phase, and there was no follow-up plan. Do you know what's even more hateful? The boss is not without money. He has other companies, and these companies are profitable and have considerable profits. A colleague went to this other company to ask for money, but he wasn't even allowed in the door. I really can't understand what these bosses are thinking. It's not that you don't have money, you do have money. That's all for today. If you enjoy our content, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe, leave a comment, and share it with a friend. We appreciate your support, and we'll see you next time.